Welcome to the Excel Purpose Show with Counselor. Today we have Rodolfo Young. He is author, speaker, and healer of life and love. He is a man on a mission to inspire 1 million hearts with their brilliance. Welcome.
Thank you, Combs. I'm happy to be here.
Oh man, I haven't seen you since our lovely lunch whilst I was on holidays in Europe and Amsterdam. So I'm excited to dive into this conversation.
Yeah, seriously, it's amazing. You know, that the event that we were at, Mind Valley University, it went by like a blur. And then the Sunday evening after we finished this 2-week event of just so much inspiration and so many wonderful connections, like the one that I made with you. And then my wife goes into labor and we have 2 twin babies 5 weeks early. And so it's been a roller coaster for me, but yet at the same time, similar to a lot of the books and the things that I talk about, it's been this practice of being present, this practice of regulating my own system and that of my wife and that of our newborns. It's been such a lesson of looking at, wow, I thought I knew a lot and I don't.
5 weeks early. That's actually a fair bit for twins as well. Mum and baby doing well?
They're all doing really well now. Actually, even the babies coming out 5 weeks early, they were strong. They were doing really well. I think it was more the idea that we had a plan. We had a very specific plan. We're like, we wanted them to be born yesterday. So on the 9th of September. So it would be 9/9/2025 adds up to 9. We were like super excited. We're like, we're going to be have 999 babies. Not to mention it was like a full moon, blood moon last night. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
Which maybe that would have been a crazy omen if they had been born on that night. So maybe we're good. But we had this whole plan and then they came 5 weeks early. And with the needs of premature babies and the feeding schedules and everything you do, all of our plans had to go out the window. And that's what I mean is we had to learn to be present to what was real in that moment instead of what our expectations of our plans were. And as we've been doing that, it's been just this amazing insight after insight that these babies are giving us. And so we're really, I love when life teaches you. I think that's what happens. And I'm a teacher about life, but really I'm a student of life.
How exciting. Congratulations, by the way. And it's, just to have you here, it's almost like I didn't expect to have this conversation with you this early, because like he must be super hectic and but you found time. So yeah, let's dig in.
I'm really happy to be here. I love doing these kind of conversations because we just dive into what's real, what's going on, right?
Well, someone once told me that to find your spark and that fire within you is that you really dig into what breaks your heart. And I think your story revolves around that. Is that correct?
Yes, very much so. Very much so. So, you're referencing the story that ended up bringing me into silence, into a year of silence. Well, let me go back a little bit. Is that the story you're talking about, or just the story of?
I don't know any of the stories, but yes, I briefly read you. That's like around Heartbreak. 1 year of silence, like complete no talking.
Yes, yeah, pretty much. I for 1 year, 365 days, I zipped the lips. Yeah, it's funny because I have a lot of stories that I love sharing with people.
What made you decide that? Can you lead me into what broke your heart and what led you to going, I'm just going to go completely silent for 365 days? And like I've done silent retreat for like 10 days. That's a lot, like this noble silence. So tell me why you did it and what was the journey like?
Well, so we got to go back all the way to 2011.
Okay.
In 2011, I was at one of the peaks of my career. I had just done a TED Talk or TEDx talk in Bali. I was in negotiations with the governor of Bali to create this massive eco world project. We were going to make Bali this like beacon of hope and light for the world in different aspects and examples. And my girlfriend at the time, so not the beautiful wife that I have here now, but a previous partner, she came to me and she put the cherry on top of everything and she said, I'm pregnant. And I remember thinking at that time, wow, everything I've ever done, every learning, teaching, achievement, accomplishment, everything that I've done, meaningless compared to I'm going to be a father. I get to be this guide, this caretaker, and this steward of another life. And I really invested a lot of my energy, a lot of my purpose, my sense of who I am and who I believed I was born to be into that idea. And as happens in life, all things that go up also must come down. That's the physics of life. And that doesn't mean that everything comes down into a negative spiral. It means that when it goes down, it also goes back up. It's just these wavelengths of life. But if we haven't learned how to fall with grace, well, then we fall flailing in a chaotic, crazy spiral of turmoil and suffering, right?
Yeah.
And I hadn't learned. And so around, I guess it was 6 weeks in, um, she miscarried and we lost the baby. And it was because I had put so much into it, because it would have been my first child, it broke me. It absolutely broke me. And it broke the relationship. It really, there was too much pain within the story of all of that we couldn't stay together. But mostly what it really, really broke in me was my confidence, because I kept hearing this voice inside that said, you weren't worthy of this child,
Oh.
that you were chosen, but you failed the task. And so now it's been taken away. And probably one of my deepest
So
fears,
you took
and
fault of that situation.
what's that?
You almost took fault, like you put the blame
Oh,
on yourself.
100%. I took 100%
Did
of
she
the
feel that way?
responsibility. My partner at the time, she probably, because she also, you know what, because our relationship broke, we never got to drop in and actually clear a lot of what had happened with that. But I know it took her about a year and a half or more to reconcile her own issues with it and the depression that it led her into. She now has, I think, two beautiful babies and is married and has this beautiful life. She actually messaged me. This is one of the most beautiful pieces of how life up and down. She messaged me when her firstborn was, I think, about a year old. So she messaged me to say, "Hey, I just wanted to touch base and let you know that I've had a child and all these things." And at that time, I was already with my now wife, and I shared it with my wife. My wife started to cry. My wife started to cry in the feeling of knowing how much that meant to me.
Mm-hmm.
So really beautiful how things actually come back around.
Yeah.
And now I am a father of two, so I doubled down on the the aspect of it. But here's what happened. Back then, I hadn't come to this, peace with all of it. And I was tormented no matter which direction I went in. If I stepped in any direction of life, especially of any relationships, it felt like I was walking on broken glass. And every single step was painful, was a surge of impact of kind of this poking at myself, going, you weren't worthy, you weren't worthy, you failed the task. And I actually have come to believe that not just for myself, but especially for anybody who takes on the role of a provider or a protector, or some of these more masculine energy types, like the archetype of the masculine that we have in our gender and in our gender roles and society. Um, when they fail, that's the biggest fear. And it's because then we lose the confidence in ourselves and we lose the confidence of others. And so then how can we lead? How can we protect? How can we provide? And so that was what I was struggling with. And I know human nature. Human nature is to go outside ourselves, to distract ourselves, to work harder, to go on a retreat, to go into substances, and to try to avoid what we're feeling. And I didn't want to do that. And similar to you, at that time, I had done a few silent practices. I understood the power of it. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to go inward quietly and I'm going to see what's going on. I'm going to heal my heart. And so I did. I decided 365 days, a full year, because I knew if I did anything less, if I did like 10 days or a month, then the first 10 days would have been me thinking about, oh, wow, this is so hard. This is so hard. The last 10 days, I'm almost done. I'm almost done. And so I wouldn't have ever surrendered into it. So that, you know, I'm going to do a year because my mind can't even cope with that. My mind can't
Did
be
someone
like,
give you that idea? How did
no,
you come up
it
with that?
was, I mean, I had done some Vipassana meditations. And so I knew the practice of mindful meditation. I knew the practice of silence with it. And I really liked it. And I had actually already done a couple of those practices on my own of
Uh-huh.
10, 20, 30 days in the world being silent. And it's wonderful. It's actually a respite to the chaos that's often around us. And it's actually one of the books that's in the pipeline right now. It's called The Pause, and it's what silence gives you. So I went into this silence and I thought that was going to heal. That whole point was heal my heart. And so I spent nearly this entire year completely silent, not speaking, but being in the world. So I continued my practices, I continued writing, I continued speaking technically because I was being hired for speaking roles internationally, and I'd show up and the co-organizers would be like, "Cool, so good to meet you. How are you?" And I'd just be nodding, and they're like, "You're talking, right? Like when you get on stage, you're gonna talk." And I'd just be nodding a no, and they're sitting there going,
Did I put the
I had
money on
a
the right
very
guy?
yeah, exactly. Right. I had a very visual presentation that I would give, and so I didn't need to speak. I found ways to operate in the world without
Oh, you actually
words.
didn't speak on
I
stage.
actually didn't speak. Yeah,
You went Mr. Bean style.
yes. Wow, what a good example, actually. That man expresses so much, right? Well, so I did this and obviously the practice itself, the year in silence was so beautiful for me. I did have many insights and at towards the end, like there was maybe a week or two left, and I checked in and I said, okay, is my heart healed? Am I ready for love again? And a little voice in my head was like, no. What? What are you
Still?
talking about? I don't think I can go more extreme than a year in silence. What am I supposed to do to heal this heart that's so broken? And as I said those words in my head, I realized what I'd been doing. For a year, I had been repeating the story. My heart is broken. I need to heal. My heart is broken. I need to heal. And so, what was I reinforcing? A healing of a heart or a broken heart? I was
Hmm.
reinforcing the story that my heart was broken. And the things that had led to that, the events, the circumstances of life, they had come and gone. They were long gone. But I had kept the story alive. And I think this is what so many of us do. And this is what I talk and I write books about so much now. The stories that we have in life, which is why I laugh that I have a lot of stories I love to share. And yet at the same time, I'm always telling my students and my clients and my readers, stop listening to your stories. Right? We look at our stories as guidance, as insights, as places of wisdom and pockets and seeds of inspiration. But if we hold them as identity, ooh, we're going to be suffering
Yeah,
because I
but
mean,
this is about not listening to negative stories. The positive ones
well,
are fine.
even
Right?
sometimes the positive ones, because if we like that the problem is the attachment, right? If we look at the very Buddhist
Okay,
philosophy of it,
I got you.
if you get attached to either the negative or the positive story, you lead to disappointment
Hmm.
because things change. That's the ups and downs in life. And so if you can see a story and garner some wisdom from it and then move forward with that wisdom, not forward with the attachment of the story. Right. As I said, even in the birth of our now beautiful twins, um, we had a plan. We had a story that we were attached to. It was a very positive plan. But because life, reality didn't partake to our plan, didn't get the memo, we ended up very disappointed and struggling to realign with what reality had brought.
How did you feel when you first knew you were having twins?
Funny enough, it was a story that was already in my head, so it didn't surprise me. Speaking of stories, my wife and I had had a lot of signs, you could say, of twins that were going to be coming into our lives. We kept hearing from people about it. We kept seeing twins, and so it was already kind of in the back of our heads that they might be twins.
Did you feel
But
like
even
that
more,
was like kind of like, you know, from the peeling of the past that you got like the double sort of thing?
maybe. I mean, there's so many reasons. I think my wife and I, for sure, we're very strong manifestors.
Mm.
When we're very clear on our intentions, we manifest things. And we're both a little later in our lives to be having children. I'm 45, she's just turned 40. And so we knew that if we waited a while longer for a second child, then it could be a little bit more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there was some kind of background intention that we had sent into whatever universal ordering system that you do for your babies that that said, hey, if you could do it in one go, that would be great. And so, yeah, no, the twins wasn't too much of a surprise. And on a slightly more personal note, at the moment of conception, we felt the two different lives. We literally, there was a moment after, we had done the deed, that there was something that I looked at her and I was like, did you feel that? Like, and then she was looking at me and then she felt something like a few seconds later and
Wow.
said, did you just feel that? And I said, yeah, kind of. And so we both had this sensation of something, like you could call it a spark. Like there was some feeling of something just happened twice.
That's wild.
And then, yeah, so the twins. So we weren't too surprised by that.
That's really, really cool. Like, so like manifestation sounds like a big thing for you then. I
Mhm.
know, it's one of those topics that I think for a while it's kind of like people see it as it's a bit weird, like it's sort of
Yeah.
tiptoe around the topic, whereas now it's
Yeah.
becoming more and more mainstream. So if people want to get interested in manifestation, what are the tips you have for them?
So I look at manifestation very differently than I think a lot of the we'll call modern spiritual communities might, because a lot of times a lot of what's happening in spiritual communities these days, and I lived in Bali for 16 years, and so I was immersed in these communities. You get a lot of spiritual bypassing, and not just on personal traumas and suffering and stories and things like that, where people just kind of avoid them. But even in manifestation, people are thinking that you rub a magic lamp of a vision board or of affirmations, and then things are just going to happen. And what it really is that you're making choices. When you make a choice and you follow those choices consistently, then things do happen, and they happen very fast. But you have to get clear on your choice, and then you have to make the choice. You have to commit to it, not wait for life to hand it to you.
Mm.
And so the way I like to think of manifestation is literally looking at the word, the manifest. What is a manifest? It's the inventory list of what's on a ship. It's saying what's already there, what's in the cargo hold. And so you would take your manifest, you would go down to the cargo hold and you're like, oh, okay, we're looking for this. This is what I want. So now is the clarity. And it's already here. I have to choose it though. If I don't choose it, then it's just going to go off on the next dock with the rest of the offload. I have to choose it.
Oh, I like
And
this. You have to choose it. Yeah, people just
you have
don't
to choose it.
choose, right?
Yeah, they don't
Deciding
choose.
it.
They really don't choose. Right?
Wow.
My wife and I, we used to give relationship workshops in Bali, and one of the biggest pieces to relationship that we say is the power of choice. That if you haven't chosen to be in the relationship, and people always look at us weird, like, what do you mean? Of course we chose to be here. I'm like, did you? Tell me your story of how this started. Oh, we were dating and it was really nice. And so we just thought, okay, let's extend this. Let's keep going. Okay, when did you make your choice? Well, I mean, I don't know. It just kind of happened. Like we started being closer. Oh, then you never made a choice. Oh.
I
And
like
that's the
this. Okay, let's talk about this. So if we
yeah,
since you're like expert on both life in general and love, so if we want love, how do we choose? What are we supposed to do? Let's walk through this in practical steps, right? How do we
yeah,
choose that we want to be in the relationship and in love? So we're doing it the right way.
yeah. So I mean, there's no right or wrong way, but what we have found is very successful and sustainable. I think that's the bigger piece. It's very easy, and you see a lot of workshops and courses on how to find love and start love. There's not very many on how to keep love, how to sustain the cultivation of a relationship. And that's really what we would talk about. And to do that, you do want to start in a certain way. And so one of the first was the willingness to grow, communication, and the power of choice. These are our three pillars to a successful relationship. The willingness to grow, what that means is you're not looking for perfection. So many of us are waiting to find the one, the perfect partner, the one that checks all the boxes. And the problem with that is you have this photo in your mind of that person, and you're walking around like this. I don't know where they are. They're not showing up. I don't get it. Yeah, because you're in your own way, right? And so the willingness to grow is to say, I'm not looking for the perfect partner. I'm defining the perfect relationship, the container that I want to join this partner in. And so we often say, don't worry about the who, get concerned about the what.
So
And
are you saying like don't focus on like physical features like
well,
like
that for
blue
one, I
eyes,
mean,
six pack, or whatever, like, and focus on the traits, or what are we talking about?
on any sense of who you think the person should be, because it doesn't matter if this is the perfect person, but the container is wrong. Here's a good example. A lot of times people find somebody that's like their perfect match, but they live across the world. And so the container of the relationship being at a distance doesn't work, and it finds itself in drama and conflict and challenge.
Yeah.
And so where we're saying to people, don't worry about the who, focus on the what, is to say, what is your definition of relationship? What if you thought relationship was like getting on a cruise ship and you're headed somewhere, where do you want to be heading? What kind of cruise ship? Are you in the luxury class, or are you in like the standard rooms? Are you there to relax, or are you there to entertain? Why are you on this ship? And so relationship, right? And when you really see that, then it doesn't matter the who, because you're going to meet the who on the ship, and they're going to have an alignment in that container. Same way if you're going on a flight somewhere, right? You don't need to worry about who you're traveling with getting there per se. You just need to make sure you guys are headed to the same place. Because if you're both at different gates heading to totally different places, relationship's not going to work. And again, in practical terms, that means, for instance, a lot of times people will get into a relationship and they will have the talk at the beginning of, hey, do you want children? And the other person might be like, no, I've never really wanted children. And then there'll be a little voice in the one that asks the question that's like, well, that'll probably change. Like, I can change them. I can change it. Right.
If
And
they were even brave enough to bring that up. Yeah.
right, yeah, even if they're brave enough,
Yeah.
exactly, to bring that up. And so we get attached to the projection of the story that we want, instead of listening to, oh, wait, we're not headed in the right direction, in the same direction, not the right, the same direction. And so that's what I mean is, you want to make sure first that the right container to you, the one that's aligned for you, is being set up. And that might be that you want relationship that gives you safety, gives you ease, maybe adventure, maybe passion. Well, whatever it is for you, and then go and start being those things in your life. Go start getting on those ships and those flights, essentially. And you're going to find other people that are in alignment with it. And that's where you'll find your who. But instead, most of us are finding a who that we're attracted to. So as you mentioned earlier, the physical traits and appearance, of course, that's the first thing that draws our attention. And then we start mapping a story in our head of how we want their personality and character to be. And so then even when they talk to us and it may not match, we're like, yeah, well, maybe I can see past that flaw or that misalignment. This will work out, right? Well, that's not really going to help you. So
Do
focus on
you
what.
do you believe in love at first sight?
I believe in capacity to choose at first sight, right? So an interesting idea, like love at first sight, I think is normally a combination of chemistry and, we'll say, aligned hormones and appearance, and what you have in your own mind identified as what would be the perfect partner. Um, and at the same time is a part of you that's committing to that. And so that's where the choice part comes in. I think when we say love at first sight, like, I don't want to dismiss it completely, because there is a piece of that that leads you to choose, that makes you go, this person, I commit 100% to, right? The only problem is if you're committing to the projection that you've made of them, then you end up having that dissolved after the honeymoon period, and you go, oh, hey, you changed. No, they didn't change. Just the projection that you had on them went away, right?
Yes. That's what I was leaning more towards. The reason I ask is I was sitting at this like dinner, and Ken Honda happened to be like sitting right next
Oh,
to me, and then there were these cards on the table, like conversation cards, right? And the one between us happened to be like, do you believe in love at first sight? So he picks this up and he asks me, right? And I was being like the logical person, as I tend to be. And I'm like, no, I'm like, I believe in lust at first sight.
Yeah, there you go.
Right? Because I feel like it's like you can't love someone that you don't know. Because if you did, it's like I feel like that's an imagination version in your head that you projected on them, which is similar to your line of thoughts, right? And then it was quite funny because then Ken looks at me and he's like, "You're so logical." And then I'm like, okay, so your view, he's like, of course I believe in love at first sight. And then he proceeds to tell me, he goes, I married my wife after like 4 dates. And then the person in front of me was like, yeah, I married my husband after the 3rd date. I was like, I stand corrected then.
Well, I guess if they can continue to cultivate, and that we go back to this first pillar, the willingness to grow, right? So if it doesn't matter whether the person's a perfect match, it doesn't matter if they're your ideal partner, it doesn't matter any of that at the beginning, because if you're willing to grow, then you're going to develop and cultivate a beautiful love together, right? Even if you were projecting like crazy on them and
even
all
if
this
it was
stuff.
delusional to begin with.
Exactly. You know, like my wife and I we're really honest with each other, and we are not, or we're not, each other's type when we first met.
Really?
Like not at all, which is probably one of the reasons it worked, because obviously every partnership before that hadn't worked. So um but we knew that no, you're not really like my type, but this is nice, and let's keep choosing. And that was really the power behind it. It wasn't saying you're the perfect person beyond everybody else. There's no comparison against you. And so you're the only choice. That's a dangerous thing to think.
How did
Because
you two meet? In what circumstances? So that if people, had people around them, but they never considered it their choice, maybe they could actually grow to become that. Can you give any more context?
yeah, so funny enough, so I had done my year in silence, and then for about 2 years, I was kind of back in the world normally, and I noticed that so much of what was coming up in me to share, to speak on, uh, was partly an identity to the silence, or an identity that I was holding on to or protecting, or different things. And I didn't like it, so I thought I'm going to go back into silence and only speak when it's of value to the world, and do another year. And so my wife and I met in that second year. I was about, I guess, 3 months before I was finishing that year, that she and I just kept seeing each other in community. Again, we were both living in Bali at the time, and so you get a lot of places where you commune, you come together as groups, and we would see each other all the time. And we started to have a chemistry, but there was no words being spoken, at least not from my side. But we started hanging out with each other a little bit more. We started to commune and connect in communication without words. And so she could speak to me. I would listen a lot. I think that was also a secret to our relationship, was she just had a man that was listening.
That's
right?
actually pretty awesome, right? Yeah.
And it allowed us to move to a depth that created a foundation for us. So two of the things that we often also recommend at the beginning of any relationship is, one, make sure you're listening well to your partner. And two, don't jump into physical contact. So we weren't in any way intimate or affectionate, no kissing, no hand holding, nothing for those full 3 months. We really just let ourselves be present with each other. And you'd be amazed, like even with just that, a lot of emotions still came up. There was still moments of drama and moments of teary eyes, and all this stuff that came up even without any of the hormonal shifts that happen when you become intimate with somebody. And so those things really gave us this foundation. But then it was at the moment when I came out of silence, which, by the way, my wife was waiting for me to come out of silence because she did want to make sure that my voice wasn't like Mickey Mouse or something.
How did she know this guy's not like mute? Did you like converse with her somehow via text or paper form, or
most of it was through like body language and miming, and I think it was often like a game for people. To be, oh, Rodolfo wants to say something. Ah, it's 3 syllables and um, she actually did hear my voice from a recording, but she didn't believe it was my voice. She's like, that's a really deep, beautiful voice. Why would this guy not use his voice? And so she did kind of know what my voice was. The truth is, she actually waited for me to speak because she wanted to know if I would still give her the presence and the listening when I could speak. And so very wise of her to do. And so now I've had to hold my tongue for the last 8, 9 years to keep her. No, I'm kidding. No, there's in relationship at the beginning, I think one of the biggest keys is that power to choose. So what we did was when we finally actually I was speaking and we were looking at, okay, let's actually commit to each other 100%. There was this looming sense that came in that was like, that I think everybody has at the beginning of a relationship, when you're at that point where you're going to commit to being serious and just the two of you and you're just cultivating your relation, that you go, yeah, let's be together forever. And that is what I think scares the bejeebas out of most people, is because there's no certainty of what forever means. And you can't really commit to forever because you're like, I can't even, there is no forever. Like at some point I'm not going to be here. And then I'm lying because I can't commit to you forever. And so what we did instead was we said, let's do 30-day increments. And so we said, we're going to commit 100% to each other for 30 days. And over those 30 days, no matter what comes up, no matter what conflict, no matter what drama, no matter what projections or distractions or anything or temptations that come up, we are together for 30 days. And at the end of those 30 days, we'll check in with each other. And so we did.
I love this. Yeah. It's great.
Oh my God, it was the most powerful thing that we could have ever done. We at the end of 30 days, you don't go back and do like a review because that will just get too much in the head.
You're just consciously re-choosing, right?
Exactly. Instead of looking back and being like, well, this was good and that was bad, you just go, do you choose me again for another 30 days? And we did it for like 6 months. We kept choosing each other until it just became, yeah, I choose you for however long this gets to keep going. And so on the inside of our wedding bands, it says, I choose you. It's become one of our most important aspects and definitely one that we share with people. You need to choose the relationship and the person, meaning that you're not saying there are no other options. So my wife and I, again, we're very honest with each other. We say to each other like, oh yeah, no, there's definitely see people all the time that are more attractive to me than you are. Definitely people that I might project, wow, that person could be a better partner maybe in this aspect, in that aspect or whatever. They're more interested in that thing. You don't even care about it, that kind of stuff. And I think that's what leads most people to problems. But we look at that and we go, and none of it matters because I choose you. I choose to cultivate with you. I choose to be in this container of growth with you. And then you learn how to communicate around all that stuff. And that's where the communication piece comes in, which I'm going to share one little formula that we've come up with for communication that I think, holy cow, it has helped us a lot. And I think it helps a lot of others.
Of course. Let's hear it.
When you communicate, only share what you're feeling and what you're requesting. Don't share the story. Only share what you're feeling and what you're requesting. So for instance, let's say I come home one day and my wife comes to me and she goes, hey, I've been feeling really lonely. I would love if we could spend some more quality time together.
I actually really like this. I can see how this works because if like I go, I feel sad, right? And then I start digging into, because you didn't throw the rubbish out and like the last time we sat down, blah, blah, like if you don't say any of that, like you're just complaining, right? And you're just digging dirt. But you're not, most of the time you're not actually getting to the point. And people's like sat there for like an hour just hearing crap. And then it's like, okay, so what do you want me to do about it? It's like, well, it's just emotion. But what I love about what you said is like, what's the request? Which is great because now you actually think it's like, okay, I feel sad. What the heck do I want you to do with that? Like at that point, right? It's like, okay, maybe I just wanted to go to that restaurant that I've mentioned 3 times and you never heard it all this time and I've been waiting. Right? It's like, book the restaurant, I'll be happy. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll just do that.
Yeah. 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 Because what you're doing is when we tell a story in between, we're doing two things. One, we're opening for defensiveness and disagreement because most of the time stories are based on perception. And so if you have a different perception of what's been going on, you're not going to land on the same page. And then you get distracted, as you said, and detoured into an argument instead of getting to what you want to request. When you get straight to the request, you're giving the power of choice. You're giving the other person the ability to choose whether they want to give that or not, if they can give that or not, whether if they can commit to it. And then when they do, wonderful, you know it was real. If you had to go through a bunch of manipulation and stacking of a story to convince them to give you the thing that you want,
anyway.
Yeah, they may not have actually wanted to do it or may not have chosen freely. And so you want to give real choice. That's the power of choice, is to give free choice, not
What
out
if they
of.
don't do it?
Okay, so that's a good question, right? That's what everybody was asked. They're like, but what if they say no? Then I go to the story. No, you give them that power to choose, because if they're saying no, then they're honoring, hopefully, their priorities and their needs. And you don't want to keep taking that away from a partner. You're going to build resentment eventually. If it's something they can't give, then you need to check to see, can it be something you can resource yourself? Is it something you can resource from others without breaking any codes of your own relationship? And is it something you really need? And if none of those works and it is something you really need, and the person is just saying, no, 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 I don't want to, that might be a willingness to grow issue. And that might be a sign that something needs to be worked on in the relationship. But most of the time, what we have found is that partners are always willing to try to give the thing, or at least to communicate through it. It's very rare that somebody's just like, no, that's a stupid idea. I don't care for that thing. You don't need it either. I'm not going to. And if that is the attitude, again, no willingness to grow, that's a red flag, right? If it's a relationship where you're both really choosing, you almost always are like, oh, I didn't even realize that's what you wanted. Yeah, let me see what I can do. Or to be honest, I'm really busy at work right now. It's stressing me out. I don't think I can give so much more quality time. But how else can we fulfill this need is,
might be
when I
planning a
am
holiday
present,
2 months later, and we're gonna
exactly,
decide.
exactly. So you communicate, you find a resolution through that.
When people are emotionally high though in an argument, like the logical two steps like may not just be so easy, right? Like when it's
Yeah.
calm, of course, like yeah, that makes sense. But like in the midst of it, if people start like throwing shades, how do you stop that?
Well, there's two things that come to mind, and one of them is understanding what your attachment styles are. So, this is fairly public knowledge at this point of these ideas of avoidant styles or anxious styles of attachment. And knowing what your partner is really important, because if you know, for instance, if one is anxious, one is avoidant, then when an argument or the emotions are high, the avoidance is going to be starting to put up walls, going to start to create barriers, withdraw. And the anxious is going to get more anxious because they're like, I need resolution. No, don't block me out. Right. And so knowing that, and then knowing how to communicate around it is one, you're always honoring the other person's needs within that. And that doesn't mean you compromise yours. It means you communicate about it. So for instance, if somebody starts to put up a wall or withdraw, then that person who's withdrawing communicates, say, hey, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm like wanting to avoid this right now. Can we pick this back up in an hour tomorrow morning, and set a specific time that you will look again for resolution from a better place? Because that gives the anxious style the calm to be like, okay, we're not just dropping this, brushing it under the rug. Like, we are going to come back to this. I will have resolution. Okay, yeah, I can honor that you need space right now, but you're honoring that I need resolution. Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, it's a concept where like most people would have heard of by now. And I, in general, I don't think people's going to put themselves in the withdrawal or anxious basket, right? It'd be like, yeah, I'm the secured one. But then how do you really know? Or is the idea that's like, we should at the beginning set aside the time and take the tests as
I mean,
honest as possible. Is that the way
any
to go?
preemptive stuff you can do is always wise to understand what your character and makeup is. But even in the midst of the thing, like one, we're all a bit avoidant and a bit anxious. It depends on the circumstances and what's triggering us. But most important within those situations, and this is the second thing I was going to say when you're in emotional conflict in the middle of it, is something my wife and I use all the time. We'll check in with each other. So if it's getting too heated, one or the other of us will say, "Are we a team?"
Ooh, that's really nice. Yeah, because that's the
Are we
choice.
a
It's
team?
like, yeah.
Yeah, it's a choice, and it's a reminder to say, "Hey, we're arguing right now because we're probably trying to figure something out that we both want, and we just have a different path to it." So are we a team right now, or are we trying to be the one that has the right path and convince the other? And if it's right or wrong, and this is something I always say about when you're trying to prove yourself right, like we all do it, we're always trying, like so many of us get defensive. We're like, no, no, my idea is right, this and that. When you're doing that, you're making everybody else wrong. And so if you're really trying to be right, you're making everyone else wrong. That doesn't make friends.
That's a good reminder.
Yeah. So you never want to get into a right or wrong argument with your partner because you're making them wrong and they're going to resent you and you're going to make them feel bad. Why would you do
There's no
that?
win.
And exactly. And so you have to remind yourselves, wait, we want the same thing. We're just going towards it differently. We are a team. Okay, let me listen again. Let me hear what your side is. Let me hear what my side is. And let's see what together gets us to the thing.
I like these tips. Tell me more about your book, Pause.
Yeah, so this is one of the ones that's in the pipeline. I have like probably 12 books in the pipeline right now, and then another 200 that will
Crazy.
be going through later because of AI technologies that lets me do it faster. Um, I have currently about 5 books published and out. Actually, no, maybe 7 books at this point. Pause is one that has been in the back burner for a very long time because it's so personal to me with the silent practices. And so I don't know how soon that one will be out. But elements of pause and this idea of silence and self-discovery through that have been in some of the ones that are already out, which are the Who Are You and the Who Am I and Who Are We books that I have. It's a self-discovery series. And the whole idea really is just how well can we be inquisitive and go on, it's funny, my wife and I call them treasure hunts of our own depth, right? And so similarly, if we're in some of these big arguments and we reach a point where we're calmly working as a team and we can ask, okay, so what's really being triggered here? Let's go on a treasure hunt. And so we go deeper to find
I like
out,
that
okay,
you
what
reframe
really
it to
triggered this?
treasure hunt. It almost feels a bit fun, a bit
It
adventurous
is. It's
rather
so
than
much fun actually then, you know? Um, it's fun too, because then when you normally the pot of gold at the end of the treasure hunt is a catharsis of emotion. And so when you get the other person to cry, but it's like this like deep releasing cry, you're like, yes, I found the treasure.
Nice. I like that.
But yeah, so right now I have been transitioning a lot of how I've been doing my writing. I've been writing books, God, for maybe 15 years or more. Actually, no more. About 18 years.
Have you
About 18
always
years.
been
Right.
like using your creative brain more?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I
just
have
always been like that's just always kind of been you. Have you been on the other side? Like, have you done boring analytical work before you became the creative person, or you're like, nah, I was always that person?
a little bit of both. I think I must have a really good bridge between what is it called? The corpus callosum, which I think is actually only in women's brains, but somehow mine is fairly well developed. I grew up with my mom and my sister, so maybe I've got an artificial corpus callosum or something, where the left and right hemispheres of the brain connect really well. So my ability to strategize and analyze and be creative with it merge pretty well. And so I love to be expressive in that way, but at the same time, you know what it actually really is? It's I'm following my own advice. I listen a lot first and then I express. And so in my listening, I'm quietly analyzing. I'm quietly synergizing and synthesizing. I'm taking so much information in and I'm putting it together. I've got a very chaotic mindset where I can really grab different puzzle pieces and synthesize them. And so I'm doing that quietly, which is also probably why the silence helped me so much. And then when I do express, it's because I've already synthesized a conclusion or a connection point between all these things, and then I'm sharing that creatively.
Yeah. Whereas most people like just talk and it's not
Exactly. They're just
wow. This is it's like time is flying, but if people want to find you and know more about you, where should they begin? Because like you're very deep, right? And it's like I'm like just looking at the time and I was like, yo, we've been on the call for like 45 minutes already. Like that was really fast. Should they begin with the series of those 3 books you
those
mentioned, the
3 books.
discovery ones, or
Yeah, that's definitely one starting point. What I would say, so I launched a platform recently called the Brilliance Hub, and I
okay.
have my own publishing and media house called Brilliance Heart Media that I'll be putting a lot more content out through all the new books actually. And so if they go to brilliancehub.org,
Okay.
brilliancehub.org, then they can go and they can find a lot of the content that I've been putting out. There's links there to my podcast as well and things like that. And so that's probably the easiest way to start off. Probably listen to some of the podcasts. I used to give talks every week and I'd record them as podcasts. I called them Heart Talks. And so they were on different topics and questions like a lot of what you've been asking about. And so it's a really beautiful way for people to get to know what I'm presenting, but also to dive deeper into questions that they might have and inquiries that they may have never have had and that explore new pathways.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And if the listeners want to contact you, what's the best place? Which platform?
Also through Brilliance Hub, they can probably find me. RodolfoYoung.com is also a place. I need to update the website though.
So Brilliance Hub
Yeah,
would be the best place?
Brilliance Hub is probably the best place, or actually Instagram if they want to contact me directly. And so that's just Rodolfo_Young. And that's actually the easiest one to contact me directly from. And I'm pretty good about answering all messages. I think on my profile it says master communicator, so I better be.
And they'll get a version of you that's speaking, not the mute version.
Exactly, exactly.
Excel in life, live your purpose, be free.